Superheroes are heroes. They're good guys who are trying to better the world. That also means they have to protect it from themselves sometimes. I'm Adam Andrews, and today on Top 10 Nerd, we're counting down the top 10 DC superheroes holding back incredible power. Number 10, Infinite Mass Punch. Faster an object is moving, the greater its mass becomes. That's a law of physics. So, for example, a bullet won't do much to you if I just threw it at you. But once that sucker is launched out a barrel going almost 400 miles per hour, it can do quite a bit of damage. Now, in physics, once an object reaches light speed, it theoretically hits infinite mass. A select number of speedsters in DC Comics like Barry Allen and Wally West can use the Speed Force to travel at, and in some cases even beyond, the speed of light. So if we take the example of the bullet and replace it with like a speedster's fist who is moving at light speed, we get the infinite mass punch. Now in the world of DC Comics, where we can ignore whatever we want to ignore about physics because there is the magical Speed Force, this punch could absolutely devastate practically any opponent. The mass and therefore the energy of the punch is infinite, so there's literally nothing that could stop it, I guess unless that thing also had infinite mass. In the real world, we don't actually know for sure what would happen, but theoretically, Flash would actually create a singularity or a black hole and destroy us all. Now I'm very clearly not a physicist, just the guy who did some quick reading online, but if you can expand on this in the comments, feel free to. Number 9, Superman Supernova / Solar Flare. Since the 40s, Superman has regularly discovered new powers. One of those powers that we rarely ever see is his supernova, or his solar flare ability, where Superman releases all the solar energy he has stored in a massive blast. One example of this concept is in the Superman All-Star series by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. In this story, Superman is exposed to an excessive amount of solar radiation, which greatly amplifies his powers, but also causes his cells to break down. As a result, Superman's body essentially becomes a living solar battery with the capacity to release an immense amount of energy in a supernova-like explosion. In the storyline, Superman sacrifices himself by flying into the sun and using his energy to reignite it, saving the Earth. In the New 52 version of Superman, which is a reboot of the DC Comics universe that started in 2011, Superman gains a new power called the Super Flare, or Solar Flare. While this ability is not exactly the same as going supernova, it does involve the release of a massive amount of energy. The Super Flare power was first introduced in Superman 38. When Superman uses this ability, he expels all the solar energy stored in his cells, creating a powerful and destructive energy blast that radiates out from his body. The blast is strong enough to level a large area and incinerate virtually anything in its path. However, using this power comes at a cost. After releasing the Super Flare, Superman's cells are depleted of solar energy, rendering him essentially just regular old human and powerless for about 24 hours until his cells can recharge by absorbing sunlight again. Number 8, Captain Atom. In the New 52, Captain Atom's powers are like an atomic party that just never stops. His atoms are constantly splitting and reforming, giving him an infinite amount of power, which could allow him to do basically anything. But he has used it to transmute lava into snow with just a thought, take on not one, not two, but 3 alternate Supermen and make it look like a walk in the park, and fire energy blasts with no apparent limit. Captain Atom's only real kryptonite, or Atomnite, is a little thing called coherence loss. Basically, if Atom uses too much power too fast, his atoms start partying a little bit too hard and will lose their groove. But even this limitation is something he is expected to eventually overcome given time and growth for his powers. So with all this power, how are there any villains left in the world? How has he not solved all of our problems? Basically, because at his core, he is still human. Some think that Captain Atom might actually be holding back in order to keep his human side intact, instead of becoming a heartless atomic entity, kind of like Dr. Manhattan. Number 7, Dr. Fate. One of the first magic-wielding superheroes ever, Dr. Fate debuted in 1940, way before Doctor Strange. Now, technically, Dr. Fate is a name used by the wearers of the Helmet of Fate, which was created by the powerful sorcerer Nabu, along with the Amulet of Anubis and the Cloak of Destiny. When Nabu passed, his spirit was absorbed into these items, allowing him to live on through his hosts. While Kent Nelson was the first one, characters like Inza Kramer, Jared Stevens, Khalid Nassour, and a few others have wielded the power of Dr. Fate throughout history, inhabiting the Tower of Fate and fighting magical threats. The Helmet of Fate grants the hero their vast magical powers, which include reality manipulation, matter manipulation, and time traveling, among many other abilities, plus the knowledge to cast spells that can do even more. The downside is that there is also the presence of Naboo, who gives them their power, and he doesn't always make the best choices. It has happened many times where the ones wearing the Helmet of Fate have had to actually intervene to hold back Naboo from doing something absolutely catastrophic, and it's in this way that Dr. Fate holds back. Number 6, Batman. Batman is the most famous superhero in history with no superpowers. He has honed himself to be the absolute peak of mental and physical perfection and has an array of gadgets and skills to help him in his war on crime. But he is resolutely a non-power human. However, the Dark Knight does possess an aptitude for something which could be considered a superpower: magic. Bruce Wayne has a long history with Zatanna and has been known to dabble in the mystic arts if the need arises. He once used a magic spell to exorcise dead men from Superman's body, for example. But generally, he prefers to not muck around with magic as he distrusts its unpredictable nature, which is smart. Number 5, Supergirl. Even though their power sets are pretty much the same, there are a few things that Supergirl can do that her cousin, Superman, cannot. For one thing, she doesn't share his weakness for kryptonite, and it's been hinted that she can potentially fly faster than he can. Batman also believes that Kara absorbs the Earth's solar radiation more efficiently than Superman, which means she could potentially be more powerful than him in every way, although I know a lot of people are gonna fight with that in the comments. One of the other abilities that he doesn't have is her sonic scream. Kara can emit a scream of extremely high amplitude that can cause havoc to her enemies. Now, what's weird is that she doesn't really use that powerful ability all that often. It's not really clear why, and it may be a bit more of a meta reason, as it has perhaps been limited throughout history so that Black Canary's canary cry is not diminished by comparison. Number 4, Swamp Thing. Alec Holland was a scientist who created a restorative growth formula before being doused in the chemical by gangsters and set on fire. He jumped in a nearby swamp and was reborn as the Swamp Thing. Now, eventually, it was revealed that Alec Holland had actually perished that night, and the creature was a humanoid plant elemental with Alec's memories. Regardless, the Swamp Thing is basically a god. An earth elemental and avatar of the green, essentially a god of plants with unimaginable levels of superhuman strength, durability, and inability to feel pain. He can regenerate from plant life, he can move at the speed of light, alter his size drastically, shapeshift to grant himself abilities like flight and duplication. He has control over plants, which allows him to teleport through plant life as well, and thanks to his connection to the green, he can even move through time and possesses cosmic awareness. But those are just some of his abilities. One other ability he rarely uses is the ability to possess a human body. Swamp Thing did this in 1998's Swamp Thing number 76, when he inhabited the body of John Constantine in order to, well, basically Alec used Constantine's body so he could finally make love to his wife, Abigail Arcane, which led to the birth of their daughter, Tiffy Holland. It's a little disturbing to think about, but still, I don't know if he's holding back, but he doesn't use it often. Number 3, Martian Manhunter. Okay, so this power differs greatly from the others on this list, as it's not really destructive at all. It's actually incredibly nice. John Jones's list of powers eclipses even the Man of Steel's. He has many offensive and defensive abilities. One of his lesser known powers is the ability to project complex illusions into people's minds. These illusions feel entirely real, and John has often used them to distract and cause mental chaos in opponents. However, another less destructive version of the power is called Mayavana, and it is seen as the greatest gift a Martian can bestow on another person. It is a benevolent vision which is intended to give someone the experience of what they desire most. So, most Martians use it on the one they love the most. It can also only be used one time, as the mental stress on its creator is way too high. Number 2, Zatanna. Zatanna's limits have never fully been established, with her power set varying depending on who is writing about her at any given time. time. Now initially, during her first adventures with the Justice League, her powers were quite limited, consisting in the manipulation of fire, air, water, and earth. As time has gone on, she has been shown to be one of the most capable sorcerers in the entire DC universe. The source of her powers is apparently genetic, as she inherited her father's gifts for manipulating magic and casting spells of intense power. The thing about Zatanna, though, is that her power is limited by her self-confidence. Because of that, and because of the fact that she doesn't really have the greatest confidence ever all the time, she doesn't usually use her magical abilities to her fullest potential. Because of this, she can be just a smidge inconsistent, like how the Zatanna from Earth 3, Anataz Arataz, I think that's how you pronounce it, was actually capable of stopping Mr. Mxyzptlk from accessing his fifth dimensional abilities. Zatanna has fixed the entire multiverse and brought a bunny back to life when she was a kid, but despite that, there was a time after a series of errors caused her confidence to be shattered, she was rendered completely and totally powerless for a little bit of time. And finally, in at number 1, Aquaman. Prior to the New 52 reboot, Aquaman possessed the ability to tap directly into a force known as the Clear. This primordial force is what binds all life in the sea and provides ocean-themed heroes with their superpowers. Thanks to his harnessing of the Clear, Aquaman's awesome natural telepathy was augmented to a larger degree, allowing him to communicate with and summon sea creatures from the other side of the planet and send out telepathic broadcasts across the ocean. It even allowed him to form a universal consciousness with all life in the sea, enabling him to send his mind out to see through the eyes of sea life. Something interesting about this force is that technically all life at some point originated from the ocean. So, Aquaman can also push his telepathic powers to reach out to the higher land creatures to find that element of their brain that was once an aquatic dwelling creature and manipulate it. Now, post New 52, this connection to the Clear has been altered slightly and is now known as a connection with the Life Force. The Life Force is one of the 7 forces of the universe, and for Aquaman, his connection to the Life Force is focused on marine life. And not just the marine life of Earth either. Through the Life Force, Arthur is connected to all living beings, which has enabled him to establish a supernatural link to any and all sentient entities throughout the cosmos. He can use this connection to determine a being's origin, as he was able to determine that the Void Song comes from an ocean planet after being in close contact with it. With the Life Force, a lot of his abilities are similar to the connection to the Clear, with a whole bunch more still unknown even to Aquaman, which leaves some pretty exciting potential for his character and what powers he could possess in the future. But that's all the time I've got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching on Top 10 Nerd. I'm Adam Andrews, and I'll catch you nerds on the flippity flop. Peace out, nerds.